So you know.
Oh, you know what? I just realized that Jacob is Israel. The
Yeah,
name
Yaakov.
Jacob, Yaku. That's a bacchic chant, and then the other one is Iwa. Is
Yeah,
that Eve? Like
yeah.
these are. It sounds like bacchic chants happening here, and we know these are ancient, old Bronze Age traditions that are being retold and brought into new traditions. So it's like, could it be that this ancient bacchic chants of Yake, like the name Yaakov is so close to the bacchic chant Yaki. It's almost like is this name based off the bacchic chant itself? You
And
know
that's
what I
where
mean?
then they get James from that sometimes, and
Yeah.
James and Jacob will be important later in the New Testament. And because you'll recycle characters and heroes and myths and archetypes, and a lot of times in the Bible, you'll have things show up in pairs of twos. You'll
Yeah.
have a dual.
Look at
Besides
this.
having a twin, you'll have the story told twice.
Yes. Yeah. Look at this. The name of Bacchus is actually the older form of it is Yakos. Like it's so close to Jacob. It's the same name basically. That's the name of Dionysus. You know what I mean? And then look at it says was a minor deity of some cultic importance at Athens, connected to the Eleusinian mysteries. He perhaps originated as a personification of the ritual explanation Yaki. And like Jacob is, and the Hebrew is Yaakov. So like, I don't know. I'm not an expert in linguist, but like it's pretty damn close in my opinion. So
Yeah, we're experts on nothing but having fun.
yeah, exactly. Constellation Package says it seems to be very clear hardcore drugs are being used in God worship all over the place. The ultimate highest, but absolutely, this like it's just look at Soma and the tradition of the Vedic, and then the Eleusinian mysteries. You do not get initiated unless you drink from the kaikion, which is a drug, which is a wine mixed with ergot, fermented grain with fungus, with mushrooms on it. So also, you're tripping on shrooms and wine at the same time.
Right. And like what you start to notice when you study a lot of these mystery cults is that they're all associated with different drug concoctions and different gods. Like, for example, you generally see Hecate associated with the nightshades, right? And with dogs. And there's something going on there. There's a relationship there, right? When you look at mushrooms, they're always around the sacred cow and the cow feces, and the cow urine, right? These are things that you see coming up again. When you're looking at something like, when we look at the Bacchic mysteries, which we're just talking about, you see all these references to goat's milk, right? And the drinking and consumption of goat's milk. So and if you know anything about something like deadly nightshades, like Datura, right? These aren't psychedelics. These are deliriants. This is beyond hardcore. I do not recommend anyone try deadly nightshade.
I just noticed that you said that the sacred cow is the first thing that Aaron wants to do when they're in the desert. He wants to pull out that golden calf and worship it.
Because I got a story for you about that.
Could it be that this is the Sabbatian mysteries? They're turning away from their old rites and starting like is that what the story is telling you? Like we come from these ancient Bacchic Sabbatian mysteries with the golden calf, but now we're better. Now we're more mature. Is that what's going on here? I don't know.
Let's talk about golden calf and Moses, because you talked about a drink, and we could talk a lot about different psychedelic herbs to put in that cup, from snake venoms to acacias to nightshades to this and that. I'm going to talk about something else that goes in the cup, and it's gold. We're going to talk about the golden calf. So Moses comes down, and they're worshiping a golden calf. You all know that story. You've heard that several times as a little kid. Tell me what happens next.
What happens next when after they worship it or whatever? Moses comes down.
What's the first thing that happens that after he gets pissed off?
Oh, he kills a bunch of them.
Nope. He makes them drink it. Really? He takes the golden calf and it's called strewn in water. He takes the golden calf and he throws it into the pot of hot water, and he makes the children of Israel drink the golden calf.
No way. No.
Yes, way. And then a couple chapters later,
find this verse.
Moses does something else. Moses goes and he puts the blood on the horns of the altar, because even though Moses got pissed about them drinking the golden calf, are worshiping the golden calf, mind you. He still put blood on the golden calf on a different calf a couple chapters later.
Here it is.
We're talking about the Serapis bull. And this gets into an older...
and by the way, Serapis is Bacchus.
Yeah. No, this is
the same God. Plutarch writes about this. Herodotus writes about this. That's the same God. It's just different traditions that develop, but they all come from the same sort of tradition and regime.
Sure. And in terms of this bull, we're getting into the different bull culture, pastoral culture. We know that there's mushrooms that grow in the dung. We know that, like with the ergot, we just did an episode last weekend where we talked about 20% of ergotized rye is converted into ergotamine in the cow's milk. And so with the bull worship, there's drinking of psychoactive milks, psychoactive urines, besides just slaughtering them for sacrifice purposes, are using them to thresh the wheat that you get the kykeon from, are using the shit to grow the mushrooms, are putting the blood on the horns, are putting the golden calf into water and drinking
golden and purple mix. Where you have the wheat, the blood, the body of the god, the Demeter, golden, then the purple, the wine, Bacchus, the vine, the grape. Those two become central to the mysteries, either the grain and vine. And there you go. There's your golden and purple.
You know the grain,
the two colors
the grain itself, the ergotized rye that grows on the grain, the claviceps purpurea, the word means purple.
Wow.
It's a burning purple. That's why it's called St. Anthony's fire, the condition you get from taking the ergot.
Yeah,
that's a burning purple as well as the mollusk.
Yeah, and those become the main colors of royalty, gold and purple.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I just want to read this out real quick. The Constellation Package, thanks for the super chat. I suppose we owe the Chaldean magic practicing priests a debt of gratitude, the forerunners of today's scientific community. That's an interesting point. Because the Babylonians, Chaldeans they were astronomers, they were mathematicians. That's definitely a good point.
We got an episode this weekend that's going into Chaldean magic. But it's based on Ashpenaz. Ashpenaz was the prince of the eunuchs for Nebuchadnezzar. And the name means the horse's nose. Because part of what we talked in the last episode with the ergot, the back of the horse's hoof is called the ergot, which is also the thieves' language, is argoter. And you can use some of the horse mythologies and equestrian husbandry to unpack some of this stuff. And so
also, slang comes from running through the fields, right? And gathering
the term slang is to take the tips off the wheat. And then there's a saying where Jesus does that. They go through the disciples and they get in trouble on the Sabbath when Jesus takes the tips off the wheat and he rubs them in the Syriac version. And that deals with getting the claviceps purpurea.
This is a good question. I wonder if there's any psychoactive cacti native to the Near East. Probably, right? Like out in the desert where there's a bunch of cacti. Do you think there's maybe something in the Near East?
Succulents. Well, there is something. It's called kagui, and that's in South Africa.
I knew you were going. I knew that Dion was going to have an answer to that.
This ties into the Kohanim, to the priesthood of the Kohanim, because the people that use it in South Africa have the genetic that ties in with the Kohan priesthood, because they did their tests. Because Kohans have a certain genetic DNA, because you have the Aaronite priesthood and the Kohanite priesthood. And that's where you get the word Cohen, Cohen, or Kahan. And so they've done tests in South Africa, and there's certain group of tribes, I think it's the Lemba, and they connect to the Kohens there. But what I was going to tell you about the Chaldean magic, the Chaldean.
Doesn't that mean purple, Cohen? Because Canaan means purple.
Well, I know Cohen means priest.
Okay.
Like teacher or priest. And also in Aramaic, it connects the Kahan. And also in like Genghis Khan is a Khan. It's the same. It's the same. Wow. KHN. It's just you're using different vowels. But what I was going to say about Nebuchadnezzar, he has a prince of eunuchs that's in charge of the Chaldean magic, and that's where they take Daniel and Shadrach, and they put them through the 3-year initiation program of Chaldean magic.
Here it is right here. Canaan derived from the Hurrian language for the word purple, and the Greeks knew the Canaanites as Phoenicians, which also mean. So that's why you have people always wonder, why are the Canaanites called Phoenicians? Well, they're actually the same. They mean the same thing in two different languages.
Yeah,
Both
yeah.
Canaan,
The purples.
purple for the Hittites and Hurrians, and then Phoenician is Greek. So that part of the world of the Mediterranean world, that coastal area of the Mediterranean, those are the purple people.
Well, this
Yeah.
all connects to, so one of the really cool theories that we discovered is by this guy Earl Lee. So Earl Lee looks right into the Bronze Age origins of all of these cults, and he traces it back to Minoan Crete. And specifically, he traces it to this purple mollusk production and this mushroom production. But what's interesting is that the mushroom production is not just normal mushroom production. It's at the center of a gigantic ancestral worship ceremony, and where they're inoculating dead bodies with these mushrooms and then consuming them as an act of eating the dead. And this kind of travels all across the area and influences all these different cults, from Sumer to Harappa to Egypt, right? And we see a lot of parallels, especially within the Egyptian. Like, remember when we were looking at Dion that the Osiris eating of the body there too? And weren't they doing something similar with the mushroom?
And they make Osiris cakes. They make little cakes based on, well, you know the story of how Osiris is chopped up into body parts. Well, they make the body parts into little hallucinogenic cakes, ergotized rye, and you can eat these little body parts.
If you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there's a Eucharist for Osiris.
Yeah,
Eat my cakes and drink the wine. Whoever takes part in this rite will have eternal life. I'm not kidding you. Like, you can look this up look it up in the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
They're called the mysterious cakes. I think Plutarch talks about it.
Yes.
Plutarch says
by definition, it's literally a Eucharist.
The point is,
I'm not even paraphrasing. And it says, drink the wine and eat the cakes. Whoever takes a part in these rites will have eternal life. It says it right in the text.
It's so amazing. And the point we're trying to make is that you have all of these different rites that are around transforming the dead, the beloved dead, Ancestor, into some kind of edible form, which can be ingested. And then it's understood when you're ingesting this, right? They see it in the same way that like the Catholics do. Like, you're ingesting the God. It's this entheosmos that's happening, right? So like with Osiris, right? They're making these little corn cakes. Sometimes they're even putting body parts in them, and then they're ingesting them, right?
Well, you know, and they wrap them up in little sindons, in little medicated sindons, and sometimes they bury them. You know, and in terms of also the Eucharist, mentioning the Eucharist and the connection with the dead, you might see that they'll put a Eucharist in a dead person's mouth at a funeral. Are the coins on the eye? You know about the coins on the eye for the ferryman. Well, originally those could have been mushroom caps, or they were cakes of food, of psychoactive cakes. And now if they were mushroom caps, what would happen is the spores would use the decomposing body to sprout mushrooms, and that would be a form of a Eucharist.
Wow.
You know, there's a guy who put...
Go ahead. Say it snappy. What were you going to say?
I would just since we're into the realm of the Eucharist, we have to get into one of our most shocking ones that we discovered. There's this tradition of people who believe that the Eucharist was sperm, and that these people were performing a rite of communion called spermatophagy, or what is it?
Spermatophagy.
Yeah, spermatophagy, where they're ingesting the sperm to achieve a form of gnosis. And like, you really see this get pushed in like the 19th century with this really interesting cultist named Georges Le Clement de Saint Marc. And he's a Freemason, a Rosicrucian, and also a designer of like Zeppelins and dirigibles. But he writes this book, The Eucharist, where he posits this, and he insists on this until he dies, that this is the central rite. It ruins his career. It shames him, the whole nine, right?
Well, and to take it a step further, he believes that the semen communion is something that's called chain transmission, that's been passed down since Jesus Christ, and that the apostles took it and they pass it down, and that each person has semen up to this point. So if you're ingesting the semen of the priest to this day, they think it's an unbroken chain going back to Jesus' semen.
Wow. Now, I just want to throw this out, and not to like derail what you're saying right here, but this is Egyptian Book of the Dead, right? Now, anyone can look this up. It's from the Papyrus of Nu in the British Museum, number 10,477, sheet 16. So you know I'm not just making this up. Like, you probably can't see that shit. Whatever. You can look it up. You can hear what I said. Pause the video. Go back and look it up. And it says, this is the English translation. There's a whole hymn for Osiris. And then at the end it says, this shall be said over a figure of the deceased one, which shall be placed in a model of the boat of the sun. And behold, he that reciteth shall be washed, and shall be ceremonially pure, and he shall have burnt incense before Ra, and shall have offered wine and cakes, and a roasted fowl for the journey in the boat of Ra. Now for every coup for whom such things are done shall have an existence among the living ones, and he shall never perish, and he shall be like unto that of the holy God, and no evil thing whatsoever shall attack him. So you literally have a Eucharist being done that gives you eternal life. All the way back in the, 2500 BCE when this was put together.